The 9,168th meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation concerning Western Sahara. The agenda is adopted. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of item 2 of the agenda. Members of the Council have before them document S/2022/801, the text of the draft resolution submitted by the United States of America. I wish to draw the attention of Council members to document S/2022/733, the report of the Secretary General on the situation concerning Western Sahara. The Council is ready to proceed to the vote on the draft resolution before it. I shall put the draft resolution to the vote now. Will those in favor of the draft resolution contained in document S/2022/801 please raise their hand?
Ceux qui sont contre.
Those against.
Ceux qui s'abstiennent.
Abstentions.
Le résultat.
The result of the voting is as follows: 13 votes in favor, 0 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2654.
Je vais maintenant donner la parole.
I now give the floor to those members of the Council who wish to make statements after the vote. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President. The United States is pleased to see the Council reaffirm its support for the personal envoy of the Secretary General, Staffan de Mistura, and for MINURSO with the adoption of this resolution. The United States welcomes the Council's support for MINURSO's mandate. With this vote, the Council is affirming that it is fully behind the personal envoy in his efforts to advance an enduring and dignified resolution and facilitate a just, lasting, and mutually acceptable political solution for Western Sahara. We regret the Council was not unanimous in support of renewing this mandate today, as unity greatly enhances UN efforts to achieve peace. We strongly support Personal Envoy de Mistura and his efforts to advance the political process, building on the progress of the former Personal Envoy and in line with relevant precedents. We call on all concerned to engage with the Personal Envoy in good faith and expand on their positions in order to advance a sustainable solution. This political solution is vital to promoting a peaceful and prosperous future for the people of Western Sahara and the region. We continue to view Morocco's autonomy plan as serious, credible, and realistic, and one potential approach to satisfying these aspirations. By renewing MINURSO's mandate, the Council also affirms the important role served by the mission. MINURSO's peacekeepers are tasked with monitoring and reporting on the situation on the ground, de-escalating tensions, and when possible, conducting dangerous mine clearance operations. We support these peacekeepers and call for the restoration of freedom of movement, as well as the resumption of safe and regular resupply of MINURSO team sites to ensure the sustainability of the mission's presence. We share the Council's deep concern regarding the dire situation in the Tindouf refugee camps and urge donors to increase humanitarian contributions in response to this growing crisis. In closing, I would reiterate that we as Council members share the privilege and the responsibility of encouraging constructive engagement as reflected in the resolution we just adopted. Thank you, Mr. President.
Je remercie le...
I thank the representative of the United States for their statement. And now give the floor to the representative of Kenya.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. Kenya fully supports the work of the United Nations Mission for the Referendum in Western Sahara and that of the Secretary General's personal envoy. This was reflected in our affirmative vote on Resolution 2602 in October last year, in our hope that the parties would engage the personal envoy in a way that returns MINURSO to its core objective of implementing a referendum for the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. Unfortunately, progress has been limited. This resolution continues a gradual but noticeable shift away from the mandate and will not assist the parties to achieve a just, lasting, and mutually acceptable political solution as originally intended. Unfortunately, the constructive proposals we made during the negotiations that speak to the core matter of the mandate were not taken on board. For this reason, we have voted to abstain. We are concerned that this resolution does not substantively reflect the Security Council's commitment as reflected in Resolution 2602 and previous resolutions to, and I quote, provide for the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara in the context of arrangements consistent with the principles and purposes of the Charter of the United Nations, and noting the role and responsibilities of the parties in this respect, close quote. Underlying the UN's recognition of the right to self-determination through a properly implemented referendum is the UN Charter under its Article 20, holding that all people shall have the unquestionable and inalienable right to self-determination. Equally, key to the African Union's recognition of Sahrawi and its full membership is the Constitutive Act's Article 3H to, and I quote, promote and protect human and people's rights in accordance with the African Charter on Human and People's Rights and other relevant human rights instruments, close quote. These are foundational principles for both the United Nations and the African Union. We stand by them as Kenya, not to alienate any party. We do so in the conviction that they will protect all parties and the region from conflict and suffering, and that they are sorely needed in different regions of the world. Mr. President, we further observe that the African Union, which counts both parties as its members, should not be ignored by any UN process, if only in adherence of Chapter 8 of the Charter. The personal envoy should make every effort to cooperate with the African Union to find ways to bring all parties to a common position protective of peace, security, and the holding of the agreed referendum. Mr. President, Kenya enjoys warm ties of friendship with both Morocco and Western Sahara. We aspire to further strengthen these ties through cooperation on matters of common interest at the bilateral and multilateral levels. We understand the complex and contentious nature of this situation and reaffirm our commitment to making every effort to help the parties to find a just, lasting, and mutually acceptable political solution based on compromise. We urge all the parties to engage in good faith with the Secretary General's personal envoy to achieve the long-delayed exercise of its right to self-determination by the people of Western Sahara. Thank you.
Je remercie le représentant.
I thank the representative of Kenya for their statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the United Arab Emirates.
Mr. President, we welcome the adoption of today's resolution, which extends the missions for 1 year and enhances its role in maintaining peace and security. We thank penholder United States for its tireless efforts in tabling the draft resolution and in facilitating the negotiations that led to its adoption. My country values the constructive approach of the Council, adopting a balanced language that stresses the support of Council members to Mr. de Mistura. We commend his tireless efforts, especially facilitating the political process to achieve a mutually acceptable political resolution based on the parameters of the Security Council since 2007. We call upon the personal envoy to build on the progress achieved by Mr. Köhler. That include the roundtable discussions that included the four parties, which is an important step to reach the solution. In conclusion, my country renews its full commitment to the Kingdom of Morocco and its sovereignty over the Moroccan Sahara, all the territory, and we renew the autonomy, our support to the autonomy plan presented by the Kingdom of Morocco in 2007. The Security Council considered this plan as serious and credible. Also, this autonomy plan is in line with the Charter of the United Nations and upholds the territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Morocco. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United Arab Emirates for this statement. I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Russian Federation abstained on the U.S. draft resolution of the Security Council on renewing the UN mission on a referendum in Western Sahara. The process for preparing and agreeing upon the document was not fully consultative. None of our fundamental and well-founded comments, including those of a compromise nature that we repeatedly conveyed to the US, were not taken into consideration. There was no response to a whole raft of useful proposals made by other members of the Council either. As a result, the text is now imbalanced. All of this situation once again raises doubts as to the impartiality of the informal penholders upholding their responsibilities in the Security Council on country topics. Mr. President, over recent years, the resolutions renewing MINURSO's mandate included changes that, in our opinion, harm the impartiality and unbiased approach needed for the Western Sahara situation. We were not in agreement with this in the past, and we cannot support this today either. The resolution presented today does not reflect the real situation on the ground regarding Western Sahara settlement and is unlikely to facilitate the efforts of the personal envoy of the Secretary-General, Stefan de Mistura, on renewing direct negotiations between Morocco and the Polisario Front in order to achieve mutually acceptable solutions. There are questions regarding the vaguely worded definitions of direct participants of the conflict and the Western Sahara settlement. Also, the numerous references to the less pertinent format of round tables and the limits, which will limit the mediation efforts of the personal envoy, are also dubious. The text of the resolution did not reflect the problems of access for UN structures to Western Sahara in order to provide humanitarian assistance to the civilians there. In this regard, once again, we'd like to underscore our consistent position on the Western Saharan settlement situation. We advocate a balanced and impartial approach. We support the efforts of the personal envoy to organize direct talks between Morocco and the Polisario Front. Along these lines, inter alia, as a permanent member of the Security Council and a participant of the group of Friends on Western Sahara, we continue to promote our active contacts with all interested parties. We work with the Moroccans, the Polisario Front, the Algerians, and the Mauritanians. We urge all parties to refrain from unilateral steps that could complicate renewing substantive political dialogue. The ultimate way the settlement is achieved should be based on mutually acceptable solutions that would facilitate a fair political solution to the Western Sahara situation that would suit both the Moroccans and the Polisarians and would enable self-determination for the people of Western Sahara within procedures agreed in line with the principles and aims of the UN Charter. In conclusion, we would underscore that our position on voting is dictated purely by the lack of agreement on the wording in the resolution, and we talked about this earlier. It really is an evaluation of the work of the penholders and nothing more. We nonetheless unswervingly support the UN mission in Western Sahara. It plays a key role in establishing good conditions on the ground to renew dialogue between Morocco and the Polisario Front and to push forward the peace process and support its leader, Alexandra Ivanko. Thank you very much.
Je remercie.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for their statement. I now give the floor to Representative of China.
Mr. President, the UN mission in Western Sahara diligently implements the Security Council mandate, thus making positive contributions to the political solution to the Western Sahara question and the maintenance of the overall stability in the region. We appreciate the efforts made by the peacekeepers there and support the extension of the mission. The Security Council has just adopted Resolution 2654, extending the mission's mandate for 12 months. And this demonstrates the Council's determination to uphold the mission's mandate and promote a political solution to the question of Western Sahara. China hopes that future Council resolutions on extension of MINURSO's mandate can reflect the latest changes in the situation and undergo thorough consultations so as to arrive at a text acceptable to the relevant parties. I wish to reiterate that China's position on the question of Western Sahara has been consistent and clear. We're in favor of this question be handled on the basis of relevant Security Council resolutions, so that with the good office efforts by the personal envoy of the Secretary General and through consultations between the parties on an equal footing, a just, durable, and mutually acceptable solution can be ultimately reached. We hope that consensus can be achieved at an early date with regard to the next steps in the political process of the question of Western Sahara. China will continue to keep to an objective and impartial position and support the efforts of the UN and the personal envoy of the Secretary General to promote a political solution to the question of Western Sahara. I thank you, Mr. President.
Je remercie.
I thank the representative of China for this statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Brazil.
Thank you. Mr. President, Brazil thanks the United States for its dedication as penholder for Western Sahara and for facilitating the negotiations toward the present renewal of MINURSO's mandate. I commend this Council on securing yet another extension for the crucial operations developed by MINURSO on the ground, and once again express Brazil's unwavering support for the mission's duties and responsibilities in favor of peace and stability for the territory. At the same time, I cannot but notice that this year's text, notwithstanding its many virtues, could have greatly benefited from a more balanced approach on some of its innovative propositions. Something as simple as incorporating original formulas, many of which are still very much valid, could have proven useful to bridge some of the gaps we have seen during the recent negotiations. This, in turn, could have allowed for an even stronger message of support from this Council to personal envoy de Mistura and Special Representative Ivanko. In closing, Mr. President, allow me to reiterate Brazil's steadfast commitment to a peaceful, just, and mutually acceptable solution to the question of Western Sahara under the auspices of the United Nations and in full accordance with the relevant Security Council resolutions. And I thank you.
Je remercie le représentant.
I thank the representative of Brazil for this statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as representative of Gabon. Dear colleagues, Gabon voted for the prolongation of MINURSO's mandate. This vote expresses Gabon's support to the political process to reach a realistic realizable and lasting political solution based on compromise on the different for the different problems of the Western Sahara. We are convinced that this solution will make it possible to support the efforts of Mr. Staffan de Mistura, Personal Envoy of the Secretary General of the United Nations, in relaunching the political process with the various stakeholders. Gabon's vote transmits our support to the Moroccan Initiative for Autonomy, which gives a credible, reassuring prospect and a way out not only of the current impasse, but also of reaching an acceptable political solution for all. Thank you. I resume my functions as President of the Security Council. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.